G'day ladies and gents, and welcome back to War Thunder. Today, we're going to be talking about Missile Thunder. It seems to be a bit of a contentious topic. I don't really understand why, because I quite enjoy playing Missile Thunder. So, we're going to get a couple things out of the way first. I'm only going to be talking about the MiG-21 and the Phantom, because at the moment they are the only two competitive jets at this tier. Forget the F-100, forget the T-2, forget the MiG-19s. I'm not going to be talking about them in this particular video. Also, I'll probably just conveniently ignore the MiG-21F because that thing is making me sad. That's what it is. So, in this case, we have a match with no mixed matchmaker. Would you look at that? That's a real first, and I quite enjoyed it. I was very, very excited when I figured out it was a non-mixed matchmaker. But you get to see the key differences here. Now, in this particular match, we ruffle stomp the enemy, and that's because they play their planes poorly. But in a case where you play your planes correctly, you can actually really make these enemies hurt. And of course, you need to work as a team in this case. So, the MiG-21 MF and SMT both have the R60s. The F4E and the EJ both have AIM-9Js, which to me are comparable. I cannot distinguish a difference in the game regarding the two missiles. Sure, maybe one has a slightly faster, trajectory. Maybe one has better turning rate. Maybe one has more explosive. At the end of the day, they both have the same overload and they both have extremely similar tracking. And that's really all that matters. The fact that these two missiles come in fours on each plane and are both comparable in performance is a huge thing. That means that the two planes are balanced against each other. Almost completely. Just off missiles. Missiles have sort of almost overtaken the plane in its relevance and performance. If the missile performs well, generally the plane performs well. And you can see that with, I guess, the J-35D. Not so much because it is kind of an outlier in the situation. A little bit with the F-4C, but the F-4C also has gun pods. Now, in this case, weapon systems are becoming more and more important at top tier jets. Less so the performance. So, in some cases, you're more just jockeying for a lock. Much in the same way that you're jockeying for a firing solution in props. And this kind of brings a new flavor to jets. Sure, a lot of people may not like it. And sure, you may need to grind for the missiles. I've already covered that in a video. I really don't want to talk about it again. But my basic principle is, as long as you get some form of missile stock, I think that's a good thing. And I've already said it, so I really shouldn't be. But in this case, we have an SMT, we have F4Es, and they have equal missiles. So, what we do now is effectively kind of like fractions, back in 5th grade. You cancel out the missiles. And you look at the plane by its performance. You have one more factor here. It's a three-dimensional space, if you will. You have the missiles, you have the raw performance of the plane, including its guns. And then you have the weapon systems. Now, a radar is extremely important. But most importantly is a radar that allows you to slave your missiles. It kind of links the two. But as soon as you can get that makes the plane extremely viable in this meta. Now, for those planes that don't really have good missiles, I'm talking specifically F4C, and you can argue the FGR2 having bad missiles. It kind of does and kind of doesn't. But I don't know. I'm on the kind of doesn't side, but honestly, it has the performance to kind of make up for that. It all exists in equilibrium. The better the balance of performance, missiles, and weapons, generally the better the plane. Now, in my opinion, the SMT has the better dogfighting performance. The FGR2 has insane energy performance. The F4E has sort of in between. And the F4C is, I suppose, a little bit faster, somewhere between the F4E and the FGR2. Now, I really like that. You have some sort of, spectrum of abilities with these jets. And all of them, barring the F4C and the FGR2, have more or less the same missiles. For me, that's really big. And that already starts with a balanced meta. Now, this is great. Having this particular matchup between these two planes is really, really good. Now, the missiles themselves, we have to consider, and we'll discuss roughly how they fit in the meta. Now, each plane in this meta comes with 4 missiles. The F4C comes with 4 AIM-9Es, the F4E and EJ come with 4 AIM-9Js, the FGR2 4 AIM-9Ds, and both the MiG-21s come with the R60s. Now, having 4 is really important, because if you look at for example, the Lightning F6, which only has 2, or the T2, which only has 2, these particular planes fall off because they don't really have great performance, and on top of that, they don't have the weapon systems to make up for that. For me, I think when the J-35D gets its missiles, it's basically it's AIM-9Js. I know they're AIM-9P3s, but they are functionally identical to AIM-9Js. So, it's basically going to bring the J-35 on par. Well, that's what I believe. Now, the Mirage is another case. The Mirage only gets 3 missiles, but it has really good performance. And it also sort of comes with that ability to dogfight better than the MiG-21. So it's somewhere between the J-35D and the MiG-21 in turn fighting. That is really good because you have difference and you will likely have balance. I only got to test these out briefly, but so far the Mirage makes me really happy. And then on the other side of the spectrum, you have the F-104. The F-104, at least the S, does 1500 on the deck. That is basically faster than any other plane in the game. So, you have the F-104S with pure straight line speed. And then you slowly work your way all the way down to the J-35D. The performance is great. And this little sort of spectrum thing makes for a really good matchmaker. It's no longer about the missiles, it is about the subtleties in the planes that sort of makes or breaks the matchmaker. Now, I have been rambling on a little bit. I haven't really talked about the missiles themselves. There are a few ways that you can actually counter missiles. First of all is just turn, lol. But sometimes that doesn't really work. Sometimes you're caught off guard. Now, think about this. If the Phantom that was behind you firing missiles had a gun put instead, what would you prefer? Would you prefer the missile? Would you prefer the gun pod? Sometimes you would prefer the gun pod because the gun pod is more linked to human error and needs to be led. Apparently, needs to be led. But in reality, you literally can just spray and pray. You take off the new gun modification that reduces the spread, and you have a literal wall of 20 mils. You cannot tell me that a literal wall of no-skill 20 mils requires any sort of skill. Any more skill than it requires to jockey for position behind a plane and then click the mouse button. Because the missile is literally the same thing. You can't really tell me that it is any different. And when the F4C was king, that's literally what people did. For me, I don't really see a difference. And if I'm wrong, let me know. Maybe there's something that I'm missing that's crucial. I would like to know. Regardless, there are several ways that you can avoid missiles that you can't really with gun pods as such. You can hide in clouds. The clouds will render a missile inoperable. And for me, I love that. Having that mechanic, having that ability, is so cool. And for once in War Thunder, clouds are actually not a pest and are actually, something that is nice to have. If you have problems with a missile on your 6, you just dive into clouds. And sure, it's a little bit RNG if you don't have clouds on a map, but you have that opportunity. And that's what I really like. Having that opportunity to do things. We also have flares. We have RWR. There are ways around it that don't render it as just go in, turn fight, lose all your speed, and then die to a missile. Now, the skill is in that jockeying for position. It is in playing your plane properly as in not burning all your speed, and honestly, I don't see a difference to previous patches. I do not see a difference to old top tier before rank 6 was a thing. The meta back then was if you needed something, you put the nose down and you get some speed. If you're the fastest plane, you win. It's simple as that. Obviously, it's not the be all and end all, but that is what is mostly transpired at top tier. And I don't see a difference. Functionally, I don't see a difference. But anyway, ladies and gents, that'll do it for today. Let me know what you think, and honestly, I'm really interested to have this discussion. Part of top tier for me, it changes. It's same but different. But at the same time, I think it's kind of cool. Anyway, ladies and gents, thank you for watching. Take care, and I'll catch you next time.